Hi, I'm Brad Dacus. Welcome to Faith and Law. If you haven't noticed, this is a different studio background we have. I kind of like it. I hope you do too. Now, let's take a look at this latest trending viral video. In America? Really? I'm speechless. In the United States of America. Well, folks, this is in New York. This is in the United States of America. This is not in Tehran. This is not in some radical Muslim country filled with hate against Jews and Christians. This is in New York. And you know what? I'm willing to bet that probably none of these people were arrested for what they did. Putting up the Ayatollah's face and his big statement thanking Americans for standing up in anti-Semitism and hatred against the Jews, in mockery and an attack on we the people of the United States. Yeah, they have a First Amendment right to free speech. I get that. But they don't have a right to enter property that they don't own and put up something like this without permission and creating an atmosphere of chaos and a direct challenge to law enforcement and civility. Let's hope we learn from this. And by the way, I'm still waiting to see if the Department of Justice of the Biden-Harris administration is going to do anything about it. Their silence is deafening.
When we founded PJI back in 1997, we had no idea how much we're going to be taking on defending religious freedom, defending churches that are shut down by the government. We're working hard to defend individuals with pro-life ministries, to making sure that parents' rights are respected. When public schools are secretly grooming children, our goal is to defend you without charge. We at PJI now have over 220 cases in active litigation. We're also unique in that we have offices all across the country, making sure that no one is left on the side of the road. The battle for our freedoms and liberties has never been more intense than it is right now. So let's get involved. We're here to serve, we're here to help for such a time as this.
Now, I'd like to talk to one of our attorneys about a very important case we've undertaken against the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit. This is a very important case because we're representing not just a few dozen people, but hundreds of people who lost their job simply because of their Christian faith and convictions. To help us now look at this in more depth, I'd like to bring on now attorney Janice Laura. Janice, this is a very important case we've taken on. I want you to tell us more about the Bay Area Rapid Transit and what we're undertaking and challenging them at this very important time.
Sure, of course. So PJI represents several former employees of BART that were challenging BART's policy of requiring the COVID-19 vaccination as a condition of continued employment. This policy was implemented in the fall of 2021 and then took effect about a few weeks later, mid-December of 2021. All of these employees had requested a religious exemption to BART's new policy. For one group of the employees, their faith was called into question and their request for religious exemption was just outright denied. For another group, BART did find that they met the requirements for a religious exemption, but they determined that it would be an undue hardship if they were to continue to allow these employees to remain in the workforce unvaccinated. So 7 of these plaintiffs went to a jury trial last month in San Francisco in federal court. And after a full jury trial, an 8-person jury was unable to reach a decision as to whether or not BART had violated the rights of these employees. Basically, the jury found that each of the 7 plaintiffs had met the elements for a religious discrimination claim, but were deadlocked 7-1 on whether BART had effectively raised the issue of whether granting an accommodation would have caused an undue hardship.
Okay, now I heard that we had a hung jury in this case. Could you explain to the audience what it means to have a hung jury?
Sure. So a hung jury is when a jury cannot agree on a verdict, even after extensive deliberation. In federal court, under the rules of federal civil procedure, which again, this case was in federal court in San Francisco, a jury must be unanimous in a civil case and has to be returned by at least a 6-member jury. And here we had an 8-person jury that reached a decision 7-1. So there was one holdout. There could not be a unanimous verdict, so therefore it was deadlocked and a hung jury.
Okay, Janice, I'm trying to figure out why these mandates were so strict against these employees. I mean, were there legitimate health and safety concerns here, or was this more a matter of the employer just simply trying to overreach their authority over these employees?
Right, right. No, it's a really great question, and it's one that we might never know the answer to just because it's not an element or a requirement in an employment discrimination case. But as you said, we can speculate, we can have an educated guess. One of the things that we want to look at is what was going on nationwide. And one of the things was we did have the OSHA mandate from the Biden-Harris administration, which did require employers of a certain size that did require the mandate, but that was later stricken by the Supreme Court as government overreach. Other things we might want to be looking into was, specifically with BART, well, what were they doing for their passengers? And we know that they were not requiring vaccines for their passengers to ride. They weren't requesting your vaccination status when you bought a ticket or chose your seat. So again, were there other ways that that BART could have been keeping everyone safe, but not with such a heavy hand in terms of firing their employees, whether social distancing, masking, testing, just other types of things that could have been done, again, so that people's liberty and personal privacy weren't being destroyed, basically. And again, I think when you're looking at some of these other cases, I don't think it's a jump to say that some employers took this as an opportunity to fire employees that were older. Maybe their salary was greater, maybe their healthcare costs were greater. They got the older employees off the books and they were able to replace them with employees that with a smaller salary. That's something that I think was occurring and something that, again, we can speculate on. Did they also want to cut down on absenteeism or cut down on hospitalizations? Again, maybe these were justifiable, or maybe these were something that you could consider. But at the end of the day, it has to be applied. You have to stay within the law and apply the law equally and even-handedly. And clearly, the law allows for religious exemptions, except when they cause an undue hardship.
Okay, so what's the next step in this case?
Well, this case is set to be retried on the issue of whether or not there was an undue burden on BART to keep these employees in the workplace. The issue of whether or not there was a sincere religious belief has been decided by the jury. Again, I had mentioned that that was a decision that was reached, so that is going to remain. But the second issue, the second prong of the legal test, is going to have to go to another jury. And the judge has indicated that he wants to have this be to start next month. So this could be on a fast track to retrial. But it is to be continued, and we will keep you updated on all of the ongoings of this case.
Well, Janice, thank you so much for that important update. It's just another reason why people need to be signing up to get our Legal Insider newsletter so they can pray and intercede for cases like this that are in battlefields, spiritual battlegrounds, if you will, that need prayer. These juries, these cases, these judges, they're not devoid of spiritual influence, in my opinion. It's something that we need to be praying about, and we really encourage people to be updated and to be lifting up our attorneys and the judges and the juries involved in these kinds of cases. It's very, very important. Now I'd like to bring on a special guest, Christopher Rudy, who is the CEO of Newsmax. And we at Pacific Justice Institute have a wonderful partnership working with Newsmax. So it's great to have him here on this program. Um, Christopher, you've had a prestigious career in business. I know you've been working with the media for the last 26 years, covering all kinds of different events out there. Tell me, what are the ways in which media is influencing viewers across America?
Well, look, it has a big impact. If a 30-second TV commercial can change people's minds and have them spend thousands of dollars on a product or go somewhere or move somewhere or travel across the world, think about what constant drumbeats of media propaganda information can impact a human mind. And what's happened is the media is almost entirely now liberal and or left wing and woke in some cases, and it's having a tremendously negative influence in American politics, American life, American culture. And Newsmax is here and is succeeding in a very hostile environment, and we continue to grow. We're now the fourth highest rated cable news channel. We're a top 10 cable channel when Nielsen says when you look at proportionate viewership. We're reaching 40 million Americans regularly, and Reuters just did a study that said there are 10 top news brands in the United States. I'm sorry, 12 of them, and one of them is Newsmax, and we're relatively new. So we owe it to Brad's team and everyone else that is involved with Newsmax that supports the cause that we're doing.
Okay, specifically, how is the media engaged in influencing Americans' attitudes about politics, particularly this year?
Well, we're seeing that the country has become more left wing because especially Google and big tech, when you look at the big influence they've had, Google, Facebook, the algorithms, they went out of their way to remove President Trump. I believe it was unconstitutional and illegal what they did, but they've been constricting conservative media. You've seen it, I'm sure, at your institute. We've seen it in conservative media. We've seen it at Newsmax. These guys are monopolistic. They are censors, and it's a real threat. And then you have these liberal news media monitor groups like NewsGuard that are effectively trying to cut off any advertising for conservative media online and radio, et cetera. It's a grave danger. Elon Musk just filed a lawsuit with his X group against GARM, which is an international group trying to limit conservative advertising. So it's a real serious threat, and I think we need to band together. And Newsmax, I think, has been one of the places people are going to support the truth.
Okay, Christopher, so what is the advantage of having an informed public?
Well, I would argue that they're so afraid of an informed America, they're going to great lengths to control and close down conservative media. And the power and the impact your group can have on others, these podcasts, Newsmax does. We're publishing on every level. We have a broadcast cable TV. We have which is available on most cable channels. Just look us up. We're on a streaming systems, Roku and Samsung and Pluto and all of those. We have a streaming service, Newsmax Plus. We have a website, newsmax.com. We even have a magazine, Newsmax Magazine. We're reaching 40 million Americans to inform people, and I think it's having a tremendous impact. Look, Donald Trump would not be the leading Republican, leading presidential candidate right now if it wasn't for media like ours, which was not necessarily supporting him, but we're giving his side of the story. And the public, I always believe, when they have a choice, they'll always usually go for the conservative choice.
I know we've seen a lot of shifts in the media over the last 20 years. In your opinion, where is it heading in the future? What could we expect moving forward?
Well, I think it's still going on the internet. It's going into apps. I'm not sure what the impact of artificial intelligence would be. We just recently announced that we're going to be going public, that Newsmax is going to be a public company. We're going to go IPO later this year, subject to government approvals. We felt that, the way that we can really impact that media landscape you talked about was by becoming a public company and partnering with hundreds of thousands of Americans. And news about us going public made the Wall Street Journal, Yahoo Finance, many other media, Market Watch, media organizations. And they're all talking about how successful President Trump's Truth Social and Trump Media Group has done in the public markets. We think with Newsmax's tremendous record, we've had incredible revenue growth. We were the only Nielsen-rated media cable channel to be up on all day parts last year. We're continuing to see those rise in audience. And I might add that people that are interested in joining with us, both later for the IPO if it's approved, but also for the pre-IPO shares that we're offering early to accredited investors, they can go to newsmaxinvest.com. It's a website we created for really easy access to the Newsmax information. Again, it's newsmaxinvest.com.
So looking forward, how do you think these future changes are going to impact people with regards to politics and their perception of politicians?
I think this is the most critical election in our lifetime, and it's going to really decide the future of America. And the press is going, look at the attacks on J.D. Vance and how they treated him. And then Governor Walz comes out and he has a terrible record, radical politics, and he's getting a cakewalk from the media. So it's what we're up against, but I think the next 90 days are critically important. I hope people are going to newsmax.com and looking at our cable channel because we're covering stories that like no one else is covering. And I think it's extremely important for instance, the gun issue. And the Democrats have a radical gun confiscation policy. On the life issue, they have a radical abortion on demand policy. And you're not going to get the views and Fox News was good for a long time, but it's changing. It's becoming more liberal on a lot of things, and it doesn't like Donald Trump. They made that public. They fired Tucker Carlson. Dan Bongino's gone. So I think Newsmax is the place to go, and I would encourage people to tune in. And I think again, the election, share the word, share the information you're getting, and continue to be a supporter.
With so many challenges right now happening in the media space, how does Newsmax survive with so much competition with those trying to distort the news? And what can people do to actually support what you're doing at Newsmax to provide good news?
Well, one thing is go to Newsmax, watch our channel. Number two, you can download our free app and get the streaming service anywhere in the world, getting people like Rob Schmidt and Greg Kelly and others and Mike Huckabee's show. And just go to newsmaxplus.com, newsmaxplus.com, and sign up for the free trial. The other thing is, again, we're going public later this year, early next year. It's a major step. We've had over 40,000 investors have gone to our portal, newsmaxinvest.com. It's an online portal that allows them to not only find out about our upcoming planned IPO, but also how they can maybe invest early if they're eligible and buy shares before the offering is approved, subject to that approval. And we've gotten incredible response across the board. And it's been pretty fun to watch. So again, you go to newsmaxinvest.com and check it out.
Christopher Rudy, thank you so much for being on this program, and keep up the great work. So folks, in addition to impacting the media, there's another area we need to be involved in impacting, and that's our children in education. So many children, for whatever reason, are still in public schools. And many parents can't afford private schools or they can't homeschool on their own. I get that. But there's a resource out there that they can take advantage of, and that's forming church homeschool co-ops at their church. It can be a tiny church. It doesn't have to be a big church, but a church homeschool co-op where you have parents working together to enable all children to be able to have a quality, safe, beneficial education. You can do this, and you can find out information about this on our website, pji.org. Folks, we right now have people committed full-time to visit your church to explain the different models, the different options of starting church homeschool co-ops. without charge. Just go to our website, pji.org. And if you can't find the resource, feel free just to send us an email letting us know that you'd like to have this kind of help and support, and we'll get back with you and we'll provide that information. It's a great opportunity to have a real impact for our kids for such a time as this.
Well, they're in the trenches and they're fighting, and PGI is on the front lines for the battle for freedom and liberty. They've been doing so much to equip pastors across the country and to really fight for the values that have made this country so great. Honored to be supportive of PGI.
We're living in a time when Christians are constantly under assault for their beliefs in the marketplace. And if there's not someone to advocate for them and help them with the legal necessities of defending themselves, they're going to get fired. They have no recourse. Most people don't have the resources to go hire a lawyer. It would deplete everything they own. And most lawyers, quite frankly, across the country don't deal in religious liberty issues.
Well, we're living in some very difficult days in America where basic freedoms and especially religious liberty is under attack. And that's one of the reasons why Pacific Justice Institute is so vitally important to the future of this nation. What a great group of lawyers, first-class, top-rate lawyers who are willing to stand up for freedom and stand up for our American citizens under attack.
Yeah, they can support, they can follow, they can pray. We need more organizations like PJI, and I could tell you that being in the front lines, there's not enough people that are actually in the trenches doing the difficult but tough work, and that's exactly why this organization is so critical.
One of the most incredible things about Pacific Justice Institute is that they do pro bono work. And what does that mean? Well, it means the rest of us have a responsibility. We've got to stand up and provide financial incentives and financial opportunities for these attorneys to get out there and do the fighting. And that's one of the reasons why we have Pacific Justice Institute attorneys on my national radio show, because we want to let people know, hey, there's a need here. These folks are doing very important work, and they're doing very important, successful work as well. And that's why they need our support.
When a Christian is targeted for his or her beliefs, it affects every believer in America. This idea that, well, it didn't happen to me. Well, you're next. And when Pacific Justice Institute takes on a case, it's not just that one individual that they really are representing, because a legal precedent may be established from that will protect 1 million believers who could be in the same position for the exact same issue.
Let's take a look at the Word of God. What does it say about all these challenges we're facing today? There's two verses in particular I'd like to highlight. First is 1 Timothy 2:5. It says, "For there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus." As we look at what's happening in our country, where we have these pro-death, pro-radical, hate-filled Palestinian activists and demonstrators, we often get discouraged with regards to this, but we just got to remember, Jesus is the answer. And we need to be boldly and lovingly sharing the good news of Jesus to these people who are blind. They're filled with hate, yes. They're filled with destruction, death to a degree, but it's because they're blind. They don't know Jesus. And this is something we can all do, is reach out to people who may be different culturally in terms of their faith, but there's no excuse. We need to reach out to them. That's what the early church did. That's what Jesus did. And we should do no less than to reach out to those with the hope of Christ. Speaking of hope, let's take a look at Romans chapter 12, verse 12. It says, "Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer." So, notice it says rejoice in hope. It doesn't say just bewilderedly, think about the possibility of hope. No, rejoice in hope. Be glad that God has given us the hope, the assurance of who he is and what can do and what he is going to do. When we call upon his name and we choose to follow him. Be patient in tribulation. Does that mean we're not going to have tribulation? No, we're going to have tribulation, but be patient. Why? Because we know that our God is still God. He's true to his promises, and he will see us through to the end, to his glory, giving us joy and peace for eternity. So be patient in tribulation, letting the love of Christ compel us to endure for the sake of the lost. And then finally, be constant in prayer. You know, I know when I'm not being constant in prayer, I'm worrying or I'm stressful. Those are red flashing lights saying, Brad, pray, pray. And so I'm preaching to myself here. There's times, I can assure you, my wife will tell you, there's times when I should be praying and instead I'm worrying, I'm stressful. So this is something to all of us. Let's remember, be constant in prayer. It heals us. It allows us to see as God sees in dealing with people. It gives us peace. It gives us restoration. And it allows us to bring things before the almighty hands of the all-powerful, all-loving, sovereign, omnipresent, omniscient, loving Abba, Father, our God. That is what it does. Let's not forget the power of prayer. We're going to have a lot of challenges we're facing in our nation today, no doubt. But folks, remember this. No matter how great the challenge, no matter how great the struggle, always, always keep the faith.